It has been over 800 days into the Ukraine war, or if you've been following it a bit closely, 10 years. Trump is back in the White House now, or he will be soon enough. And one of his big claims coming into power is that he can stop the Ukraine war in 24 hours. I would laugh, but this man has proven me wrong too many times. So let's listen. But you might be saying, a deal with Putin, that makes a lot of people very angry. After all, Putin did invade Ukraine. Why are we doing a deal with Putin? But Biden has privately conceded that Ukraine would go to the negotiating table anyway. So Trump is essentially saying, what's the difference? Well, maybe the difference is a good deal versus a bad deal. Maybe. According to Trump's advisors, there are a few plans in the pipeline. One would see the current front line being frozen as it is, with Russia keeping what it's taken, 20% of Ukrainian land, and Ukraine promising that they will not join NATO for at least 20 years. But if that sounds like the worst deal ever, America would also pump Ukraine with weapons to stop Russia ever invading again, or at least for the 20 years it's promised not to join NATO. Here's what the current map looks like. Yes, it would mean a smaller Ukraine and a larger Russia. It would also mean a DMZ-styled proxy border buffer zone, whatever you want to call it, much like the one they have in South Korea and North Korea. An accurate comparison, by the way, seeing as North Korean soldiers are technically in Russia right now. But if you're saying to me this sounds like way too much intervention for America coming from Trump, don't worry, it's got the usual MAGA flavour to it. Trump has said that America would not contribute any troops to enforcing the border. Instead, Europe would do it. The idea floating is that troops from Germany, France, and maybe even the UK would be looking after the new border buffer zone. But America have also said, don't worry, you wouldn't necessarily join NATO, but then South Korea's not a part of NATO. Israel's not a part of NATO either, and they're pretty well protected, if you know what I mean. This would be a difficult deal for Ukraine's leader Zelensky to accept, coming out of that war with a smaller Ukraine and the severe damage that has happened over the last few years. Zelensky is unlikely to survive politically. But then, what choice would he have? Trump is saying that if Ukraine does not agree to Trump's deal, then Ukraine would be cut off from America financially and no weapons would go into Ukraine at all. This is not a we're asking you to do something, it's a we're telling you politely. Look, under Biden, Ukraine was already having some problems. The skies were open. Ukraine said, please let me close the skies. Biden said, no. Ukraine said, please let me use long-range missiles on Russia. Biden said no. Ukraine was slowly being pushed off to the negotiating table regardless. Trump is saying we'll do things a bit faster. But whether that's a good deal or bad deal, that's up for debate. I feel in some way that Joe Biden was already closing the door on Ukraine very slowly. Trump, he may just be about to slam the door shut instead.